Hello and welcome to Science Meets Vedanta, a platform dedicated to delving into the core principles of Vedanta and uncovering the remarkable connections between scientific inquiry and ancient wisdom. I am Jayant Kapatkar, author of the book Science Meets Vedanta. Each week, inspired by insights from my book, we'll journey through a range of topics aimed at deepening your understanding of the essential teachings of Vedanta. Along the way, we'll also examine scientific concepts and demonstrate how the wisdom of Vedanta can offer new and meaningful perspectives. Be sure to join us as we embark on this enlightening path together. Today's episode centers on a provocative idea. The perception process, as traditionally explained by science, is fundamentally flawed. While this may seem like a daring claim, it is one we believe is justified. The scientific explanation of perception is riddled with limitations, inaccuracies, and unresolved questions. In this episode, we will examine some of these critical issues and offer a fresh perspective on how perception truly operates. To begin, let's take a closer look at the conventional perception process as taught by science. Perception process taught by science. There is a universe out there with an unlimited number of objects. Let us call these objects Object 1. Now there must be a light source. The light from this source falls on these objects, and the reflected light from these objects travels toward our eyes. This reflected light, using photons, gathers all the required information about the objects, information like the shape and greenness of the tree, the blueness of the sky, the shape and yellowness of the orange, etc. From this, it does seem that this reflected light is our only connection to the world out there. If there is no reflected light, we will not be able to perceive the universe. All perception depends upon this reflected light. When the reflected light with the required information reaches the retina in the eye, the retina converts the reflected light into an optical signal. The optical signal is sent to the brain for processing. What happens in the brain is a big mystery. Science has very little understanding about how the brain processes the optical signal. But somehow an object image is created for perception. We can call the object image created by the brain Object 2. It seems there are two sets of the same object. Object 1 out there and Object 2 in the brain. We do not experience these two sets. We experience only one set of objects. But which one? A good question. A good way to understand this is to see what happens when we watch TV. A live sports match is being played at the stadium, and we watch the image of this match on our TV. Here again, there are two sets of the same objects. A live match played in the stadium and another set on TV. We can draw a parallel with our earlier discussion. The live match in the stadium is Object 1, and what we see on TV is Object 2. Here too, there are two sets of objects, Object 1 and Object 2. In this case, there is no confusion. We are clear that we are watching Object 2 on the TV. We can never watch a live match, Object 1, by sitting at home. We must be at the stadium. If we apply the above reasoning, it is correct to conclude that we experience the object image created by the brain. We perceive the Object 2. This is logical because the observer within us can only perceive what is created by the brain. It can only perceive Object 2. The observer within us can never perceive Object 1. Why? It is at the other end of the reflected light. There is no direct connection between the observer within us and Object 1. Just like we cannot perceive the live sports match by sitting at home. In the same way, the observer within us cannot perceive Object 1 out there. Let's approach this idea from another angle. When light travels from Object 1 to our eye, it takes a certain amount of time to get there and for our brain to create Object 2. In that brief interval, while light is traveling, Object 1 has already changed in some way, however small. Because of this, our mind perceives Object 2 only. It cannot perceive the ever-changing Object 1. These points suggest that we don't perceive Object 1 directly. Instead, our perception is limited to object 2, the version produced by our brain. If we do perceive object 2, then a simple question arises. Where is object 1? What is out there? How do we justify the existence of object 1? I guess there is no proper answer. Does it feel like we perceive object 2? No, it does not seem like that. It seems like we are always perceiving object 1. See the confusion. Logically, we perceive object 2, but we think we perceive object 1. So how do we justify the existence of two sets of the same object? This confusion is there because the perception process taught by science is incorrect. It is unable to resolve the dilemma between object 1 and object 2. So what is the correct perception process? We will discuss this shortly. Shortcoming of photons in the perception process. Our perception of the external world is solely based on the reflected photons traveling from the object to the retina. This over-dependence on the reflected photons has many shortcomings. Let us discuss some of the key issues. 1. Around 120 million photons hit the retina every moment. That is a huge number of photons. Each moment, a new set of photons reaches the human eye. Each of these millions of photons must maintain its purity and accuracy to the highest level. If they don't, we will have a distortion of the image being created by the brain. Is this 100% accuracy possible? Science teaches us that these photons interact with atoms, molecules, and even virtual particles. When they interact, the photons can be absorbed, deflected, or reinvented as different photons. The longer the distance the photons travel, the higher the chances of distortion. All this will reduce the accuracy of the photons reaching the retina. Distortion of the image created by the brain is a distinct possibility. 2. Another critical question is, how can a photon accurately represent the distance and time it has traveled? The object could be close by, like a tree or a distant star. There is no way to know which photon has traveled how far to reach the human eye. As of now, there is no indication that the photon has some sort of memory to know from which object it has come from and the distance it has traveled. There are millions of photons hitting the retina, but there is no way to know which photon comes from which object and how much distance it has traveled. If this critical information is lacking, it is impossible for the brain to reproduce the image we are trying to perceive. 3. You could say that this is perhaps unknown to science. The photon does have memory to know the distance it has traveled. If so, how does it transfer this distance data to the retina? The retina, in turn, must enter data regarding distance into the optical signal being sent to the brain. Only in this way can the brain accurately reconstruct the visual image. We don't know if this is happening or even possible. 4. There is a lack of understanding of how a photon really functions. We see the photons zipping around at the speed of light, but from the perspective of the photons, they do not really travel. They exist outside space and time. If you properly understand Einstein's theory of special relativity, you will find this conclusion to be correct. We have a full episode covering the Einstein theory of relativity. If you have time, please listen to this episode. Without going into any technical details, the key point of this theory is that whenever there is motion, time slows down and space contracts. Yes, time and space are not a fixed entity, but are dependent upon the speed of motion. This theory is a proven fact. The faster the motion, the slower the time, and the greater the contraction of space. And finally, if you reach the speed of light, there is no time and no space. Time comes to a standstill and space disappears. This fact is known to science. So what travels at the speed of light? The only thing which travels at the speed of light is photons. Nothing else can. Since photons travel at the speed of light, from their perspective, there is no space and no time. They exist outside space and time. This is a fact which must be understood and appreciated. Nature is creating an amazing illusion. We think that photons are zipping around at the speed of light, but from the perspective of photons, they do not travel. If this idea is understood, it will shatter the idea that perception is dependent upon photons. All the above arguments show that it is just not very clear how we really perceive. What science teaches us is full of problems and shortcomings. Projection, the correct perception process. So, what is the correct perception process? Vedanta is very clear on this topic. It teaches that our mind projects the universe we see around us. The mind is like a projector, projecting all the objects around us. The gross objects we see around us are the projection of the mind. Each mind is its own projector, and each mind projects its own content. The question to answer is, what is this content? The content is the subtle universe in the cosmic mind. There is a fully functioning, subtle universe made up of waveforms. Each object in the universe has a subtle version made up of waveforms. The features, attributes, qualities, and makeup of objects are present in this waveform. Even you and I, and all living beings, have a subtle version. This subtle version of objects makes up the subtle universe. These subtle objects interact with each other. They update and modify each other. It will be surprising to know that everything happens first in this fully functioning subtle universe. Please listen to the episode, Understanding the Universe of Waveforms. In this episode, I have presented an analysis of the subtle universe and how it functions. There is no doubt that a complete understanding of how the subtle universe functions is beyond human intellect. However, knowing the unlimited intelligence present in nature, the subtle universe must be organized efficiently and effectively. As earlier mentioned, this subtle universe exists in the cosmic mind. A portion or subset of the subtle universe is sent to each individual mind. This is the portion which covers our current surroundings and all the objects currently around us. As we have discussed in different episodes, awareness is also present within the mind. So the individual mind has two components, awareness and object waveforms. When object waveforms are superimposed on awareness, we have the experience of the objects. Awareness is the substratum of all objects. When the object waveforms in the mind come in contact with awareness, magic happens. Awareness fills the object waveforms with awareness. The power of awareness then projects this content out there as gross objects in the gross universe. This is how we perceive the gross world out there. In a future episode, we'll explain in detail the step-by-step process of how the projection of the universe takes place. During the projection process, you might notice that there are two sets of identical objects, one existing in the mind and the other appearing externally. In this scenario, there is no ambiguity. The set within the mind represents the subtle form, while the set manifested outside by the mind is the gross form. Essentially, the subtle version in the mind transforms into the gross version we perceive around us. This process is straightforward and clear without any confusion. We trust that this episode has illuminated the various limitations and misunderstandings often associated with the scientific perspective on perception. Throughout our conversation, we have examined several shortcomings inherent in the traditional model. To truly address these challenges, it is essential to recognize that the only accurate way for the process of perception to function is for each individual mind to project their own gross universe. If you are interested in delving deeper into topics like this, we invite you to explore our blog at vedantaandscience.com or discover more in my book, Science Meets Vedanta, available on Amazon. Additionally, we offer a growing library of episodes covering many different topics. Feel free to browse through them at your convenience. If you enjoyed today's episode, we encourage you to share it with your family and friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an upcoming episode. Thank you for tuning in. We look forward to connecting with you again soon.